Most men believe that women fall in love because they do all the right things. They think that as long as they are kind enough, attentive enough, romantic enough, the woman will stay. They bring flowers to her doorstep, text her goodnight every evening, reply quickly, listen patiently, and ask thoughtful questions. And yet, one day, they realize something unexpected. She's slowly pulling away. Her replies become less frequent, colder, quieter. Sometimes, she disappears without any clear reason. That's when men start to panic and ask themselves, "What did I do wrong?" But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You simply didn't understand what truly makes a woman fall in love. Women don't fall in love when a man makes them feel safe. They begin to fall when he makes them feel something they cannot explain or control. A silent stirring, an irresistible pull, a kind of energy that draws them in no matter how hard they try to stay composed. It's not about your words, not about timing. It's the energy you give off when you no longer need to prove yourself. When you don't chase her, when you don't try to explain who you are, when you no longer strive to be perfect just to be chosen. When you simply show up, calm and grounded, doing absolutely nothing, yet making it impossible for her to look away. That's when she starts to feel something. Even if she can't understand why, it's not about logic, technique, or any outdated dating strategy. What truly makes a woman fall is something beyond her control. And once you understand that, you won't just be attractive, you'll be unforgettable. Subscribe to Light of Wise Elders, where we share thoughtful, high-quality insights every day. Now, let's explore 10 simple yet powerful truths about how a woman truly falls for a man. First, masculine calmness is what melts her heart. Most men believe that in order to make a woman open up, they need to say the right things, do the right things, or offer her a sense of security through firm promises. But the truth is, she does not fall in love because you say the right things. She falls because you remain unshaken when her emotional storm breaks loose. Women are emotional beings, not because they are weak, but because they feel everything more deeply, more quickly, and more intensely. When they love, they don't just use logic. They use their hearts, their intuition, and sometimes even the nameless fears buried deep within. In the midst of that whirlwind, what they need is a man strong enough not to be swept away. A man who can look at her, tears streaming down her face, hear her say things she does not even mean, and still keep his gaze steady, his breathing calm, and his voice low, grounded, and as solid as stone, not because he is emotionless, but because he has learned how to remain anchored when others lose control. He does not rush to comfort, does not react defensively, does not walk away at the peak of tension. He simply stays, fully present, unwavering in his presence. And it is in that very moment that she knows she can trust him. No school will teach you this. No self-help book goes deep enough to describe the feeling of emotional surrender a woman experiences when she stands before a man who is neither ruled by her emotions nor dismissive of them. A man who allows her to feel completely without trying to fix or control her. That man, in the language of Stoicism, is someone who has mastered himself. He understands a simple yet powerful truth. Emotions are not commands. They are signals to be observed. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In relationships, this means you do not respond to what she says. You respond according to what you believe. You are not dragged down by fleeting emotions, by unconscious tests, or by sudden bursts of anger, because you know who is holding the reins inside you. And she, even if she cannot put it into words, will sense it deeply. She will feel safe, not because you say, "I will protect you," but because your calm energy makes her feel there is no need to defend herself anymore. A woman once told me, "I knew I loved him, not because he said the right things, but because I could fall apart in front of him, and he never flinched." That is the essence of true masculine strength. And if you are still wondering where to begin, start with your breath. Slow it down. Relax your shoulders. Hold your gaze, but without tension. Listen, not to reply, but simply to understand. That is when she begins to feel something she has never felt before. Not romance, not instant passion, but a quiet trust that whispers, "With you, I can be completely myself." Timely silence is stronger than the best words. There is a nearly instinctive reaction in men when they sense a woman beginning to drift away. They start talking more, They try to explain to calm her down, to prove they are worth staying for. They send longer messages, reply faster than usual, and keep repeating, "I'm sorry," even when they do not understand what they are apologizing for. Ironically, the more they talk, the more she feels the urge to retreat. Women do not grow distant because men lack effort, but because their energy becomes frantic, off balance, and unfocused. And nothing reveals that shift more clearly than excessive words. This is something very few people will teach you. Silence, when used at the right moment, is the highest form of emotional control. It is not passive aggression, not neglect, not indifference. It is a quiet declaration of strength that says, "I do not need to chase uncertainty. If you need space, I am here, but I will not lose myself just to gain your attention." She may unconsciously push you away. She may go silent just to see how you respond. She may wait to observe how anxious you become when ignored. And most men, without realizing it, fall right into the trap. But a man who has lived through enough, who has learned to slow down and observe, does not respond impulsively. He understands that not every silence needs to be broken. Sometimes, silence allows the other person to feel the space they have created. And within that space, questions begin to emerge. Why hasn't he messaged? Is he upset? Or has he grown used to my absence? That is the moment when longing, confusion, and true emotion begin to rise. In psychology, this is known as the power of emotional distance. When you stop filling every gap with explanations or affirmations, the other person's mind will begin to fill it with emotion, imagination, and curiosity. A calm man does not rush to defend himself the moment he is misunderstood. He does not argue to prove he is right. He does not plead with logic or emotion. He allows his presence, and at times his absence, to speak for itself. This is what Stoicism calls emotional discipline. It is the difference between a man who reacts out of fear and a man who acts with clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." And often, the best answer to indifference is silence as well. A woman once told me, after ending a relationship with a composed man, "He didn't try to stop me." And that was exactly what made me rethink everything. Silence, when placed with intention, becomes a mirror reflecting your worth. Not through what you say, but through the presence you maintain. Remember this, silence is not used to win. It is how you protect your inner strength when everything tempts you to lose it. And when you no longer struggle to be heard, that is when your presence begins to resonate the most. Third, true presence, not performance, is what moves a woman. There is something subtle that women can always sense. No matter how carefully you try to hide it, whether you are being genuine or performing, whether you are truly listening or just waiting for your turn to speak, whether you want to connect or simply want to impress, whether you are sitting with her or your mind is already racing ahead, planning your next move, regardless of whether you are aware of it, she always feels the answer. Women do not fall for the man who makes them laugh the most, nor the one who tells the best stories or dresses the sharpest. They fall for the man who makes them feel truly seen, without judgment or defensiveness. And that only happens when you are genuinely present. Being present is not just about being physically there. It is about showing up fully, without playing a role, without trying too hard. Many men fall into the invisible trap of misunderstanding what makes them attractive. They believe they must be witty, must share their most impressive stories, must prove they are interesting in order to be remembered. But when you are trying to impress, your attention is on yourself. You start wondering, what does she think of me? Am I being boring? What should I say next to keep this going? And in doing so, you disappear from the moment. In contrast, the man who remains calm, who speaks little but listens with full attention, is often the one who makes her feel important. Not because he is more special than others, but because he is not trying to be anyone else. I once heard a woman describe her first date with such a man. She said, "He didn't say much, but he looked straight into my eyes when I spoke, and not once did he interrupt. I felt safe, like I didn't need to perform." Being present means you do not need to dominate the conversation. You do not need to fill silence with nervous laughter. You do not need to maintain a cheerful atmosphere at all times. You are simply there, steady as a still lake, where she can see herself clearly without feeling judged. Psychologically, presence reduces anxiety and creates a genuine sense of connection. When she senses that you are not distracted, not analyzing, not scripting the moment, she begins to relax. This principle is deeply rooted in Stoicism as well. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to live in the present, without being dependent on what has not yet come. A man who is truly present is not acting. He does not live in the future, nor is he obsessed with the outcome. He does not meet a woman to get something from her. He shows up to connect, to understand, and to experience, not to win." And paradoxically, this quiet simplicity echoes most deeply in a woman's heart. If you want to leave a lasting impression, stop performing. Learn to be at peace with yourself, so that when she looks at you, she does not see a man putting on a show. She sees a real person, calm and authentic, someone she will not easily forget. Fourth, women are drawn to the man who doesn't need them. It may sound contradictory, but in the realm of emotion, the man who does not need a woman is often the one she desires the most, not because he ignores her, not because he dismisses love, but because he has built a life so complete that no one is required to fill it. On the other hand, the more a man shows he is ready, the more he tries to prove his love, the more eager he is to stay, the more likely it is that a woman will slowly withdraw. Deep down, she senses that he is looking for someone to complete him, and no matter how thoughtful or profound a woman may be, she does not want to become the emotional crutch for a man who has not yet become whole within himself. Consider two images. One is of a man who always initiates contact, replies immediately, changes his schedule for her, apologizes even when he does not understand his mistake. The other is a man who still loves, still cares, but continues his morning workouts, does not cancel plans with his friends, and does not feel the need to explain himself over a delayed reply. Which man is she more likely to think about late at night? It is the one who does not place her at the center of his universe, yet still carries enough presence to make her want to enter his world. A man who is whole, who does not need, but still chooses. That is the kind of man a woman cannot look away from. This is not a psychological trick. It is not about playing it cool or pretending. It is a genuine state of being, where you live with purpose, with discipline, with a sense of joy and meaning that goes beyond any romantic relationship. You do not give up everything just to hold on to her. You do not abandon your gym routine, your journey of self-improvement, or the dream you are building, just because someone new has entered your life. And strangely enough, it is that very groundedness that makes a woman want to stay. In Stoic philosophy, this is known as inner sufficiency. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You are not bound by her presence or her absence. You are still yourself, calm and moving forward. This does not mean you are cold. It means you have boundaries. You do not melt just because she is beautiful, sweet, or says she needs you. Because you have learned something essential. If you need someone else to feel whole, the love you give will always be accompanied by fear, and love that arises from fear will eventually fade. Let love come from a choice, not from an emptiness waiting to be filled. When you no longer need her, yet you are still willing to open your heart and love her. That is when you become different. You are no longer a man searching for love. You are the man love comes searching for. Fifth, attraction doesn't come from words, but from emotional distance. There is a kind of man that a woman cannot stop thinking about. Not because he is remarkably handsome, not because he is clever with words, but because she cannot quite figure out what he is thinking. This unpredictability, when it comes from awareness and emotional self-control, does not frustrate a woman. On the contrary, it awakens the deepest parts of her curiosity. You might believe that to make a woman feel secure, you should be completely open. You should tell her everything you think, feel, and plan. You should message regularly, call to explain when you are busy, and leave nothing to question. But what you may not realize is that when she can predict your every reaction, the emotional rhythm begins to flatten. Women do not need everything to be perfectly safe. They need a little mystery, a little emotional tension, in order for love to grow. In other words, if you are too easy to read, you will slowly lose your charm. Love, like music, needs pauses and pressure. If you are always available, always present, always quick to respond, and always say "I miss you" the moment she does, then over time, every gesture you make will begin to lose weight. Not because you are not good enough, but because you are too easy to reach. In psychology, this is called intermittent reinforcement. Emotional signals that are not entirely predictable, not as a form of manipulation, but as the natural flow of a man who is not ruled by the need to be constantly accepted. When you sometimes stay silent, when you occasionally reply after a few hours, when you do not always explain every move you make, that is when her mind starts to activate. She wonders, what is he doing? Why didn't he message like usual today? Is there something more important occupying his attention? And you know what? It is the questions, not the answers, that create long-lasting attraction. This is not avoidance, and it is not a game. This is what happens when you are calm enough within yourself that you do not need to voice every thought and feeling just to maintain connection. You are not retreating to make her worried. You are simply living your life, not dictated by the expectations of others. Within that emotional distance, if she truly cares, she will take a step closer. Stoicism teaches this clearly. When you remain steady in the midst of chaos, you become the still center in someone else's turbulent world. Emotional distance is not a wall. It is space where desire can grow. And when she senses that she has not completely figured you out, she will start longing for closeness more than any sweet words could ever make her feel. Sixth, mystery is not a game. It is strength. Women are not obsessed with what you say. They become obsessed with what you do not say, with the feeling that something deeper exists within you, something they have not yet touched. That is the essence of mystery. But it is not the cold, distant, manipulative kind. It is the kind that comes from knowing your worth and choosing carefully when and how to reveal yourself. Many men are misled by generic advice. Be open, be honest, share everything to build connection. It sounds reasonable, but if you share too early, too much, and too quickly, you do not create connection. You drain your depth, because anything that is too easily given is also too easily forgotten. A woman may be willing to listen to your stories about childhood, past heartbreaks, dreams, and failures. But if all of that is laid out in the first meeting like an open book, there is nothing left to explore. And when there is nothing left to discover, attraction quietly slips away. Imagine watching a film where, in the first 10 minutes, the main character reveals every secret, every twist, and the entire ending. Would you still want to keep watching? A man's allure is not measured by how well he speaks, but by how he makes others want to know more. When you say just enough, when you allow silence to linger, when you leave space for her to wonder what you might be thinking, that is when emotional connection begins to deepen without her even realizing it. In psychology, this is related to the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency for people to remember incomplete experiences more vividly than those that are finished. When you leave emotional gaps unspoken, she begins to fill them with imagination, longing, and curiosity. But to cultivate this kind of mystery, you cannot pretend. You must live it with sincerity, calmness, and strength. You must know when to speak, and more importantly, when to hold back. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Likewise, do not tell your whole story too soon. Let her feel each layer as time unfolds. Understand this clearly. You are not a book meant to be opened by anyone at any moment. You are a map to be explored, with emotional heights and valleys revealed only through time and trust. When she must walk a path to understand you, step by step. When each conversation opens a new door, when even your quiet gaze hints at something unnamed, that is when fascination begins. Mystery is not about confusing her. It is about becoming the kind of man she cannot stop watching because she knows there is still something more. And to do that, you do not need to be cold or distant. You only need to be calm enough not to give yourself away to just anyone, simply out of fear of being missed. Seventh, true bonding does not come from physical intimacy, but from being carefully chosen to enter your world. In today's world, people often share everything very quickly. They speak openly about their emotions, reveal their past stories, give away their physical closeness, and expose even the most private corners of their lives. Because of that, the ability to choose carefully what to share and with whom has become a rare and precious quality. A woman does not form a deep emotional connection simply because you are kind or emotionally available. What creates real bonding is when she feels that you have chosen her specifically. She senses that what you are offering is not shared with everyone, but reserved for someone you truly value. On the other hand, if you share your past with every person you date, Say I love you after just a few meetings. Or treat physical closeness as a necessary part of getting to know someone. The connection may seem strong at first, but often disappears just as fast. When something is too easy to receive, it loses its meaning. This is not because you lack value, but because you gave everything before she had a chance to desire it. Without space for longing, emotional depth cannot grow. I once heard a woman reflect on a relationship she ended. She said she liked the man very much, but everything between them moved too quickly. She never had time to feel special. She felt as if she were no different from anyone else who had passed through his life. Her words may sound harsh, but they express a truth many overlook. A man who has experienced life and grown from it understands that intimacy is not about how much you share. It is about the reason behind your sharing. You do not speak just to break the silence. You do not reveal your pain hoping for pity. You do not tell your story to quickly create closeness. You choose to share when you believe the person in front of you has earned the right to know a deeper part of you. When you open up gradually, when you let your inner world unfold in small, meaningful steps, and when you treat every act of sharing as a conscious decision, the woman begins to feel a deep sense of respect. From that respect, real emotional connection begins. In Stoic philosophy, this attitude reflects the principle of moderation. Not everything becomes more meaningful just because it is given in abundance. Sincerity does not mean showing every part of your soul to everyone who asks. Self-respect is shown by your ability to choose what to give and when to give it. Imagine your inner life as a beautifully built home. Many men, out of fear of being alone, throw open the doors and invite someone in after only a few conversations. But a man who knows his own worth does not act out of fear. He welcomes others, but with thoughtfulness and intention. He understands that something which is carefully revealed and not rushed will always be held more dearly. Emotional bonding does not happen because you give her everything at once. It happens when she feels that every part of you she discovers has meaning, and that she is not just passing through, but has been chosen to stay. Eighth, confidence without the need for approval is the energy that makes women pursue you. There are two kinds of men who walk into a room. One enters with loud energy, trying to be noticed. He talks constantly, tells stories about his success, makes jokes, and keeps looking around to see who is watching. The other does not say much. He does not try to prove anything. He simply walks in with a calm presence, grounded and complete. Strangely, it is often the second man who captures a woman's attention. This is not because he is more handsome, nor is it because he acts cold or mysterious in a calculated way. It is because he does not give off the energy of lack. His confidence does not come from being noticed. It comes from within. Most men, when faced with a woman they find attractive, immediately switch into performance mode. They start talking more than usual. They give compliments too quickly. They try to show they understand women. They do everything they can to be chosen. But the more effort they make to be seen, the more their value starts to fade in her eyes. Women, on a deeper instinctual level, can sense the hunger behind the performance. And neediness, no matter how well hidden, is never attractive. True confidence does not come from being loved or approved. It comes from knowing that you are whole, regardless of who sees it. A confident man does not need to say he is confident. He does not chase compliments. He does not send good morning texts just to be remembered. And he does not panic when she takes her time to reply. Not because he is playing games, but because he does not need external reactions to feel worthy. Stoic philosophy calls this inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that a man can always return to himself and find peace, no matter what happens outside. This means you do not need someone else's attention to know your value. You already carry it with you, like a quiet strength that cannot be taken away. And that is exactly what makes women curious. They begin to wonder why you are not trying to impress them. They notice that you are not seeking validation. They feel the calmness in your eyes and begin to ask questions in their minds. Why is he so composed? Why is he not chasing approval? What is he thinking that gives him such steady presence? That curiosity grows, not because you said something clever, but because you did not need to say anything at all. You simply stood there, fully yourself, without the need to convince anyone. Your silence becomes magnetic. You do not need to act confident. You are confident because you have nothing to prove. When you look at her with stillness, not as someone begging for affection, but as a man who sees the world with ease and clarity, your energy becomes an invitation. not one that demands attention, but one that makes her want to step closer. Ninth, a man with clear standards is the one who cannot be replaced. In love, many men believe that attraction grows from giving more, yielding more, or being endlessly tolerant. They think that being generous, forgiving, and emotionally flexible will win a woman's heart. But for a woman who is mature and self-aware, the one who earns her deepest respect and lasting affection is the man who knows where he stands. This has nothing to do with the woman's appearance, background, or income. It has everything to do with how you allow others to treat you. A man can be kind, polite, and gentle, but if he lacks the ability to say no, if he easily overlooks unexplained lateness, or repeatedly forgives dishonesty, then eventually, the very foundation of his presence begins to erode, even if she never says it. A woman can feel it when a man begins to bend himself to fit her. From that moment, she unconsciously begins to test his limits, not because she wants to hurt him, but because something inside her needs to know whether his strength is real or simply a disguise built out of fear. It is similar to testing the foundation of a bridge before stepping onto it. If everything feels too easy, she will not trust it completely. You may believe that love means sacrifice, but love does not mean losing yourself. Love means inviting someone into your world without lowering the boundaries that protect your integrity. A man who has lived with awareness understands this. He knows he does not need to raise his voice to be respected. He does not need to threaten anyone to be heard. He only needs to be clear about what he accepts and what he does not. If a woman arrives late without notice, he does not become angry or passive-aggressive. He simply says, with calm and clarity, that he values punctuality and that if it happens again, without explanation, he will leave without waiting. No bitterness, no drama, no emotional manipulation. Just steadiness and quiet resolve. That is the moment she stops and looks at him differently. She begins to adjust her behavior, not out of fear of losing him, but because she now respects him. That kind of clarity reshapes the dynamic. It builds trust. It awakens something deeper than charm or romance. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us to ask every morning what belongs to us and what does not, and then to act only on what we can control. You cannot control how others behave, but you can always control how you respond. That is where the dignity of a man lives. You may lose a few relationships if you stand firm in your standards, but what you gain is far greater. You earn the quiet respect of those who matter, and from that respect, real love can grow, because a woman does not fall deeply for the man who gives in to everything. She falls for the man who knows what he stands for, even while loving her. 10th, the man who can walk away is the one a woman never wants to lose. There is a quiet truth that few dare to admit. The man who is willing to walk away is often the one a woman never wants to lose, not because he threatens her, and not because he plays with her emotions, but because his presence carries something both captivating and honorable. His strength does not lie in what he gives, but in what he refuses to sacrifice just to be loved. Many men, once they fall deeply for someone, begin to compromise almost everything. They change who they are to please her. They accept things they never would have tolerated before. They live in fear of losing the relationship, and in doing so, they lose themselves. But when a man is willing to stay only if the relationship remains true to who he is, he becomes irreplaceable. A woman may not fully understand it at first, but she feels it. She senses that he is not afraid to let go. She realizes that he chooses to stay, not because he has no other option, but because being with her still aligns with the man he is becoming. This is the quiet power of healthy detachment. It is a freedom that lives inside. It says, I am here with you because I want to be, not because I need to be. If one day this love no longer reflects who I am, I will leave with grace and peace. In Stoic teaching, this is the independence of the soul. Seneca wrote that poverty is not in having little, but in craving too much. That truth applies not only to wealth, but also to love. A man who can walk away is not a man without feelings. He is a man who understands that love cannot be built on fear, and a woman feels this truth more clearly than words can express. When she knows that your sense of wholeness does not depend on her presence, when she sees that you will not trade your values for another chance, and when she realizes that if she walks away, you will not collapse but continue to live fully. That is when the fear of losing you quietly begins to grow in her heart, because you are no longer just another man hoping to be loved. You are a man of clarity. You do not remain where you are not respected. You do not plead to please someone who cannot meet you where you stand. You do not abandon your identity to chase a temporary feeling of closeness. And strangely, it is that very strength that makes her want to stay more than any romantic promise ever could. No one wants to lose a man who is always free to leave, but still chose to hold their hand. Conclusion: she does not love what you prove. She loves the man you are becoming. A woman's love, when it is real, does not come from perfection. It does not grow from sweet words, well-timed gestures, or carefully studied charm. True love comes from something much harder to describe. It comes from the energy you carry when you enter a room. It comes from how you remain calm in the middle of emotional storms. It comes from the way you hold your gaze steady without lowering it just to be accepted. She does not fall in love because you fight to keep her. She falls in love when she sees that you are capable of walking away, but still choose to stay. She does not love you because you need her to feel complete. She loves you because you already are whole, and from that place of peace, you reach for her with freedom, not fear. The man a woman remembers most deeply is not the one who says, "I will never leave you." It is the one who lives with honesty, loves with depth, and if necessary, lets go with grace. So, if you are still searching for a love that makes you feel complete, perhaps you are looking in the wrong direction. Become complete first, and love will find you. You have made it to the end of this journey, and that says something important about who you are. If you are a man seeking calm within chaos, clarity in the face of temptation, and a love built on awareness, you are exactly where you need to be. Light of Wise Elders is a space created for men like you. Here, we do not chase the noise. We learn to stand strong in the silence. Subscribe to the channel so that each week, we can continue walking together on the path of self-mastery and love with presence and wisdom. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.